Saw that, man. First of
Yo,
that.
brother.
How we doing, man?
How you doing, bro? I'm good. How are you, brother?
Oh, doing pretty good, man. Just hanging out.
That's what's up. How's your week going?
Good, good. It's been a sweet week for us. We've had some nice hits, a couple of stop outs. I got stopped out a couple times today. Don't love that, but good, solid week, man. What about you?
Good to hear. I only took a trade on Monday. I saw a clear on the upside. Other than that, I didn't take a trade since then. I took a trade today, a
Mhm.
spy call, made like $20 off, and that's it.
Sick. That's a great day, dude. 20 bucks in the
Yeah,
pocket, call it a day, dude.
yeah,
Sick. I will
yeah.
always support that, dude. I wish more people would show up and take a 20 or a 50 spot out of the market and get out of it, dude. Go live your day, you know?
Yeah. I don't like I don't like how it moves. Like it's just very choppy, and I don't want to be a part of that. That's the reason why. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. Just like those type of days, it happens. $20, $50. I'm fine with it. I'm green. That's what
Yep.
matters.
And that's all that matters. That is all that matters. And we're gonna touch on that a little bit tonight, as a matter of fact. Joe, how we doing?
See that.
But yeah, people hate this kind of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had some awesome moves like the last couple of days. If you happen to be involved in the market, when they happened, these kinds of things, those are
Yeah.
great. This kind of stuff, people tend to hate today. People tend to hate today, was a relatively easy one, if you I don't know. I was just kind of watching this type of trend stuff, and they were giving us some, the bounces were easy enough to short, the dips were easy enough to scalp long. Um, I did get smoked. I bought a spy call right here. I ended up being able to sneak out for a smaller loss, but
Yeah, that was a quick one.
yeah,
That was a
but
quick one. Yeah.
yeah, but then we also shorted, and I think I even had my trend a little drawn. I think I had my trend. Had my trend like this, and we shorted this green candle, and I told everybody, I was like, we're just calling the bluff on the market. It ain't ready to break out. Um, Unfortunately, I sold them all right around here, somewhere around here, but they were a big one. They did
Oh,
34 to 350 or something like that. I sold it.
that's good.
I sold it 80, but it's always nice to, it's nice when you at least even have the chance at the 1,000%er, even if it slips through your fingers. They're always fun to be in there.
Of course, being a part of both, it's
Yeah.
amazing. You can get some cash.
Yep, and that's what I
I
did. And what
realized.
I bought this call, Crashmas, right here. I bought this call right here because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for volatile bounce up. And then even, I mean, I wasn't just looking at SPY. A lot of the names sitting right at the 50 EMA. So it was either we were going to get the nice bounce or we were going to break down. Then we broke down. And unfortunately, I mean, if I bought the call here, I was happy. It was that should have waited 5 minutes. 1K, how we doing? Just waking up. Another hard day at the watering hole.
Yeah, that wait, that short was when it pumped up all the way up.
Yeah, we hit it right here. And that's even what I mean. And I told it, 1 second. Let me try to remember how to do this. I think I did it this way. I'll show you what else we were looking at. Yeah, we got a couple minutes still. So we took that short, obviously extremely high risk, because you have to look at it as, I mean, technically speaking, the market is breaking out, at least SPY is trying to break out, but then I went to all these, my individual names as I always do. Um, and I was seeing a bit of a double top on Apple. I was seeing Amazon basically setting these lower highs, and not able to get over this. I was seeing the first tests of these VWAPs on Microsoft. Didn't think it was going to get over that. Then I had my 134 level on Nvidia, which has been a bit of a wall. So I looked at that as, hey, whole market is at resistance. And are we shorting strength and a breakout? Absolutely. So, when we took this trade, I made it pretty clear. I was like, here's the deal. I'm calling the bluff on this breakout. These things could be minus 50% in the next candle. But they just so happened to work out for us that time. But the market was showing us, we had enough from the market to say, hey, everything is sort of at some form of resistance. So we put the little short on.
Yeah. What you know what I've realized like trading like over these couple years on and off, like anytime there's a big pump up, it would never break to like, like if we're at 595, right? It won't go to 600. It will retest and then it'll go up again.
Yeah, that's
That's
a
what I
almost
realized.
always. And that's what, I mean, I teach
Yeah.
this statistic all the time, 80% of breakouts fail. And you know
Yeah.
what all that means, that doesn't necessarily like, that doesn't necessarily mean don't look for the breakout, but you need to build volume. You need to build strength. You
Yeah.
can't get a breakout without nice consolidation. And what a failing breakouts are nothing more than consolidation when you really break it down. So that's why you never want to be the first person trying to buy the double top breakout because it's probably not going to happen. But you come back and try it again and again and again, kind of break it, get a pullback. Well, yeah, now you've tried it a bunch. Market might have enough strength to try to look for that little break. But people always want to see, oh, look at all this buying. We're going to break out, forget this double top. And then they're on top of the world and then ultimately end up really sad because oftentimes they fail and go against you. Rob's, how we doing?
Yeah. The market's always against you, isn't it? Like
I
once
mean,
you win, it's like it's
I want, so a lot of people talk about it. Uh, a lot of people talk about it, trading against the market. We're trading against, hedge funds and blah, blah, blah. Well, in reality, what we should be doing as traders is just trying to trade the same way they are. Like if the market's going up, and don't get me wrong, I know this is like, so of course I'm saying this right after the trade we just talked. If the market's going up, don't just be looking for a short. The market's going up, so trade going up. I mean, the market
yeah.
is, if you want it to be, it is as simple as, is it going up and to the right? Then I'm staying long. Is it going down and to the right? Then I'm staying short. And sometimes you do just kind of have to take the step back and say, like, what am I doing here? And God, I do it all the time. We had a ripper day. It might have been like this day. I think it was this day. Huge upside day, $10 upside day. I only made money short on this day. And I look back at it and say to myself, what was I thinking? Obviously. And, I mean, I see a $6, $7 move and it starts to get hard for me to buy longs. And then it goes another $6 or whatever it is. But this was a day where I only made money short. And we opened at 588 and peaked at 595. And somehow that's just sometimes that's just what you do on occasion.
True.
Uh, but I mean, sometimes I just take what the market gives me, even if it happens to all
Yeah.
just be against the trend. Not saying that's the right thing. In fact, tonight I'm really going to recommend against that, of course. Give me
Mm,
1 second. I got to make one more post and I will get
no
to it. I
problem.
was just laughing at a DM a little bit. Give me 1 second. What's that tab?
Al Brooks,
The go.
Raphael, is that a book? Al,
It's a guy. Yeah, he's
the
the
guy.
best price action trader on the planet.
I'm gonna check him out.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Happy to have you here, Dirty River. Tonight we are talking one of my, personal absolute favorite things to talk about, and that is trading psychology. I always, of course, try to relate things back to the charts. So of course we're going to talk about that a little bit because, the charts are really what gives, they control your trading psychology. When you start seeing something bad happen on a chart, that's what makes your trading psychology go bad. And so like I said, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I invited FaZe. I unfortunately don't think we're going to get FaZe tonight. But I love trading psychology and I feel really lucky because I'm a person that doesn't especially struggle with it. But tonight we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. Obviously, lately in these lectures, I've been leaving mics unmuted. Occasionally, we got to give, Mr. Norvin a mute, but beyond that, I think it's been going really good. So definitely going to continue to keep those mics unmuted. So if you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to ask about, we can definitely feel free to unmute those mics. That's what it's all about. But when I do these trading psychologies, I like discussion. So, tonight is a night where I definitely want to encourage you to unmute your mic. Something that I always tell people is if you have a question, I can 99% guarantee you that somebody else very likely has the same question. So just by asking it, you're not only going to help yourself, but you're going to help the people in here as well. And then because trading psychology is, most people suffer from the exact same aspects of it. The big ones are obviously greed. You're up huge, you aren't selling, and then all of a sudden you start watching it go down and go down, and you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I'll sell when if we get back to that price, I'll sell it." And then the next thing you know, your contract's red, or obviously FOMO. Like we were even just talking a trade like this. You see nice strong buying. Double tops work more often than they don't, and yet you still try to buy into the breakout, thinking that the breakout is coming, fearing that you're going to miss the move. And the next thing you know, you're blown out, and then again, bad trading psychology might make you hold until you're a little bit green again. But I always try to bring it back to the charts. It's the easiest places to, see FOMO, see are you chasing. One of the really difficult things with trading and difficult things with trading psychology is it's very easy for us and to look back at the charts and say, what was I doing? Why did I do this? Oh, I could have done this or this better. But we have to ignore that. And so we'll get this rolling again. If anybody wants to unmute mics, if we're just trading the charts and we take losses, something goes against us, we go back and we look at the chart. I always want to encourage people to do that. Go back, look at the chart, say, what could I have done different? Could I have, avoided this loss? Was my entry bad? What could I have done to make this a better trade? And then you leave it there. We want to go learn the positive aspects. Sometimes you bottom tick, you catch a ripper, you make money. Sometimes that's going to happen. You don't learn anything from it. Maybe you learn how to take a good entry at a level or whatever it is, but you don't learn a lot from a trade like that. A loss that you take is something that you can learn a lot from. You can go back, you can look at the chart and say, what made me go long or short or whatever it is here? And was that right or wrong? And I talk about it a lot in classes, when we're going back and looking at charts, it's hindsight trading. Like, sure, I can say I would have hammered calls right here off of this trend. Well, when the market was going on, maybe there was a bunch of stuff that told me to not do that. So when you go back and look at these trades, you learn from them and then you forget about them. You can't dwell on the loss. And so that was one of the big things that I wanted to talk about tonight is losses. People never talk about the losses that they take. You guys know me, I'm super open about it. If I'm losing money, or if you guys are losing money, I'm losing it with you. You've all seen screenshots of my red positions. I put all of the losses on my trade tracking sheet. I want people to understand that in trading, you take losses. You are 100% going to take a loss at some point. And trading is one of these funny things where if you make it your job, it is one of the only jobs where you can show up to work. You can sit down at your desk. You can work really hard. I mean, obviously you aren't working your body real hard, but it can be absolutely mentally draining sitting here staring at charts all day, and you work really hard and then you leave at the end of the day and you have less money with you started than you started with. That is a really real thing that does happen more often than people want to admit in trading. And so that's why I want to talk about losses. We all take them. how can we avoid them? What are some things that we can do? Is it what's leading us to take these losses? Is it FOMO? Are we chasing trades? It's the number one thing that I see in the group all the time. And I try to teach constantly. And, a bunch of us do try to teach it in here. Being patient is the best thing you can do as a trader. For anybody who's traded with me in voice chat or in the premium voice chats, or, over the years, I've been doing voice chats on and off for 5 years now or something in OOT. Flips does them, Nando does them, and we all deal with the same thing. And I'm not trying to be mean to any of you if this is you, but somebody shows up and they say, what are we in? Or they say calls or puts. Well, one, you shouldn't just be diving into whatever trade is mentioned without looking at a chart. But two, people get this weird belief that every single candle is an entry. And I teach heavily that it is not. Yeah, exactly. Martin flips you in anything. Name makes me laugh every time I see it because it is so real. And so every candle's not an entry. People think that, if you are in the trade, then that's the only way you can be making money, but they don't ever think about the other side of it. And the other side of it is they don't think about the money they can be losing. Um, they want to look at every candle of the day. Maybe we're in SPY calls and they see, and we're up and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to buy the next dip. I'm going to buy the next dip. Well, maybe we entered SPY calls way down here. We're already up nice. And you're just looking for a dip at the highs to try to get in there. 9 out of 10 times, waiting for a real entry is going to not only save you money on your losses because your entry is going to be better, but it's going to result in you taking better trades. Maybe you miss a trade right here. I mean, I'm kind of looking at this thinking I probably wouldn't have been like taking anything right here myself, Maybe you miss this, but maybe you do see nice bounce up, you start pulling back, and maybe you do say, I want to buy this trend. Well, you don't start getting faked out by all of these candles. Oh, this one went green. This is where the bounce is going to come. You need to wait and let your plan play out. Is there going to be times where your plan doesn't work and it never comes to your entry and you aren't in the trade? Absolutely. But by sitting and waiting, you are going to save yourself on losses. And so that's, like I said, I want to focus on losses tonight and I want to start to use some charts and I want to discuss some of the common things that I've seen. And the FOMO and the chasing and the just not paying attention to charts is one of the main issues that I see in OOT. And so I'm going to give a couple examples of, what I've seen lately, and how I like to analyze charts. Exactly. Yeah. Any SPX trades? That's like my least favorite question in OOT, without a doubt. But so we're going to go through a couple charts and we're going to talk about some trades that I took that worked or didn't work. And how I managed them. And so one of them we're going to talk about today is AT&T. And so this one was a loss for me today. I saw this nice push down, so I started to buy the reversal, knowing that my stop was going to be under here. Keep in mind, this is AT&T, so this is a 6-7 cent range. There was a little bit of green, and then it started doing nothing, and it started doing nothing, and it started doing nothing. I had told everybody, this is going to be my stop, 27.41. I figured we'd be down $2-3 a contract, whatever it was. But I alerted in my tab, I don't think we're going to get the bounce that I want. So this was a trade that we bought these at $17 a contract, and we stopped out of them at $16 a contract. We lost $1 and fees on this trade. And why did I make the decision to do this? Because I was looking at my chart and, overall big picture, we knew T was coming down. We actually tried to catch another bounce that I stopped out on. But knew T was coming down, trend was down. We knew that it hadn't seen any sort of buying in the last couple of days. And we were trying to catch a small bounce to move our contracts in the money. We were trading the 27.50s, we went a cent or two in the money, never enough to sell. And so I took the stop out here. And why did I take the stop out here? because I don't get attached to a trade. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe we're going to get the big old pop, but I know there's a million more trades. I know that we're trading, we got 2 days left on these contracts. And if something doesn't happen quickly, then you're going to end up losing money. And so ultimately, I ended up taking the stop out here for a little bit of a loss because to me, it made the most sense. And I started thinking about, how much do I want to lose? And I knew that, when I had originally bought these, if we had taken a candle down, I could have stopped out. It wasn't going to hurt me at all. Well, when I've held them for an hour or more, and I know if we start pulling down, and I know that if we get down to here, there's a very, very good chance that my loss is going to turn into a 50% loss. I get out of the trade. And do I end up stopping out of trades that run sometimes? Absolutely. But to me, I am always going to look at the risk side before I look at the potential reward side. Because we all know, everybody says, if this works, these will pay huge. And then they're the people 2 hours later that are like, my contracts are minus 80%. What do I do? And that is where the issue comes of, you weren't looking at the charts. You weren't actually trying to analyze what was going on. You had no plan. And
Right, right.
you're happy if you're making money. Yeah, give me one second. You're happy if you're
No,
making
no.
money, but then because you aren't thinking about the losing money side of it before you take the trade, then you don't know how to handle the loss. And handling the loss is what everybody needs to work with on their trading. Okay, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so you do you know when to sell because you've been through that situation,
Yeah,
you've seen it happen,
yep, I've seen
and
it.
you've
And
seen
I've
these
seen it a
signals
million
come to you,
times.
like, okay, this is gonna happen, I'm gonna sell.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is, this is dumb to say because you should never trade on this, but I've seen this before, just like you're saying. And I know not everybody has that experience. And it's weird to like, if you really boil it down, there's technically nothing on this chart other than a bunch of wicks on the top that to me says, you should stop out of this trade if I'm strictly looking at the technicals. However, I love trading AT&T. So I know how AT&T trades. And I know 9 times out of 10 when AT&T struggles with something major like the VWAP and the hourly 20, because this trade thing does trade so technical, to get out of this. The buyers aren't going to show up on the day. And I mean, as we can see up here, 24 million sell volume and 1 million buy volume. They never showed up in force. It obviously got clobbered into close, but they just never showed up in force. So this stop out was, it was more on trading psychology than anything else. If I've seen this before, I'm not going to risk this. And so, do I hate to tell people to stop out of a trade? Of course, but sometimes it's just the best thing to do. Because if you're right, great. And you're going to be mad that you're out of the trade. But more often than not, when you take that stop is when oh, that's funny. I must have had a joke on this one. When you take that stop, I tell people all the time, it feels great when you make money. Of course, we're all here to make money, who cares how much money you make in a day? Your goal should be more than yesterday, $1, $1,000. I don't care. If you're green on the day, congratulations. For when we're trading and you make that money, you're happy. Well, for me, something that I say all the time almost feels better than making money. Think about those times where, you take the stop out, you lose your 10% or whatever. And, maybe you're mad because you took the stop out and it sucks losing money. Then you look back like an hour later and those contracts are down 90%. And that feeling of, wow, I would have been absolutely wrecked, but I took the stop out, sometimes feels better than the win, knowing that you protected your money. And
No
so
cap.
I am always going to err on the side of not losing money, I mean, like we're here to make money. I should touch on that a little bit more. We're here to make money. You aren't here to care how much somebody else makes. You guys have heard me say it a million times. GainsTab is the plague. If you want to go into GainsTab and post a trade that you hit and you're happy with you know, that you made money, or thank an analyst or whatever you're going to do, I of course support that. The issue with it is people go in there, somebody with their $500 port, they see the YOLOer that made 8,000 bucks with a $500 port, and they're like, that's what I want. That's where the real issue with GainsTab is that it builds FOMO, it builds greed. You know, people message me and I tell them, hey, hit 20 and 30% trades over and over. Yeah, our Jets Tesla. That guy was on the heater of a lifetime, then that's for sure. You know, I tell people all the time, hit those 20, 30% trades over and over and over and over again, day in, day out, and your port is going to grow exponentially. You know, don't ever doubt that. That's where the real money is made in the market, is consistent, repeatable gains. The people who you see in GainsTab one day posting that, you know, their port's up 300% or even 40%. The next day, they're always the ones saying, well, my port's down 20%, because the luck runs out. The people who, you know, they're trading proper position size. Don't get me wrong. I get if you have a $500 port, a $600 port, finding reasonably priced contracts can be a little bit difficult. You know, if you're trying to stick to that, you know, I recommend 5%. I know other people recommend 10%, but never more than 5% of your port in a trade. Well, if you got a $500 port, that's only 25 bucks. I get that it can, when you have a smaller port, it is, unless you know, you're trading those slow moving names, your AT&Ts, your Coca-Colas, your Walmarts, Bank of Americas. I mean, there's a million cheap names to trade. But I know most people aren't going to trade them no matter how much we recommend them. You're likely going to be over leveraged. So you have to be aware of that when you're trading a small port. But don't care about anybody else. Don't be the idiot on trade floor fighting with somebody trying to say, oh, this person posted fake gains, or I don't care what it is. You know, I saw somebody fighting with Norvin, his 106,000% gain. Yeah, it's fake. Nobody cares. You know, like, don't be the person fighting over it. Don't care about somebody else that much. Care about your port. I always hear people saying, oh, well, I have a goal of $500 a day. I got a goal of 3% a day, whatever it is. Never have those goals. When you have a goal is when you start to make bad trading decisions. You know, think of your goals $100, you're up $95 on the day, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to take a real quick trade. I'm going to make my $5 and I'm going to be at my goal. And then one thing leads to another. You've lost $40. You're further away from your goal, all because you rushed a trade trying to meet the goal. The only goal you should have as a trader is $1 more than yesterday. I mean, if you're green on the day, then technically speaking, your job as a trader is complete. You know, that's our job. Make money. Nobody's going to remember your GainsTab post of your 300% gain that was, you know, minus 90% before it got there. You need to be trading for you. Like I said, if you're proud of a trade you want to post in GainsTab, in no way am I telling you to not do that or anything, but just always remember deep down, trading is for you and it is for nobody else, you know? I get DMs, you know, frequently, obviously. And I got to be honest, when I get the DM from the person who's really, really been working and they have a smaller port and they're like, check this out, you know, I got a $500 port and I made 30 bucks today. I am so much more stoked for that person who made $30 than the person who made 3,000 bucks YOLOing something stupid, or, you know, holding an SPX to minus 99% and getting saved on a market dump. Like, I'm going to respect the real trader. I'm way more impressed by the 30 bucks from a real well thought out trade than I will ever be at, you know, an end of day SPX or SPY or any of it. And don't get me wrong, I alert them too. I take them too. I'm not disrespecting the trades, but show me that sweet, well thought out trade. I bought here because my plan told me to. I sold here because my plan told me to, and I made money. I did the right thing. That's what impresses me. That's what impresses real traders. I mean, message any of us that care, message 1K, message Tilio, message me, any of us that really care about trading and you getting better as a trader. We are going to be more impressed by the well thought out, properly executed trade than the person that's like, look, my port's up 150% today. Like, that's never going to impress a real trader. Of course, we're super happy for you that you made money. I'm not a terrible person. Like, I'm stoked you made money, but I'm not impressed by your YOLO. I'm not impressed by your port that was minus 50% last week and is up 150% this week. One of the very large issues that we deal with in trading, and I mean, you'll see it in trade floor all the time. People, and I get, like I said, I get a lot of DMs. I encourage all of you to DM me. Let's talk. If you're having issues, let's talk. But I get a lot of DMs, and I get a lot of DMs of, that are unfortunately, hey, I'm down bad. How do I turn it around? And maybe some people do start to turn it around. Maybe some don't start to turn it around. But the big issue that we see, and what I always caution people with, is as traders, we need to build confidence. We need to learn to swing the bat. We need to say, okay, XYZ lines up. I'm clicking buy. We need to get there. The issue is, don't get there too fast. You guys are lucky in here. We have a lot of good traders in here, like analysts and in voice chats. And we got some good traders on trade floor. Pro trade floor is packed with them. Um, you know, we we as those, more confident traders learn this with time. We didn't build confidence on YOLOs, and we didn't, trade for 3 months, 6 months, a year and say, I got this all figured out. Trading's easy. I'm the best of the best. We all have dedicated years of our lives to build the confidence to, trade and to talk to some of you, like there's mornings, obviously, the pro voice chat will top out about 100 people in there, but there's times in premium voice chat, you guys got 300 plus people, 350 plus people in there. The people who are talking to you have built that confidence over years. So never be the person who, and we got a few of them in trade floor right now that are very loud. And some of the loudest people in trade floor were in my DMs not 2 or 3 months ago saying, I'm down bad. Will I ever recover? And now they're the ones on trade floor saying, this is easy. I told you, I knew this was going to happen. And we've all seen the cycle. That's going to catch up to them. And those really loud people are going to get quiet, and they're going to start taking more and more losses again because they're getting ahead of themselves. This is even, I do some one-on-ones here and there. And this is one of the really common things I work with people on one-on-ones is, you you got to swing the bat. If something lines up, you got to try, but don't just dive into it too fast. If you're just learning how to chart or whatever it is, I'm not telling you to go start, slap some support and resistance on there and start buying calls every time you hit resistance or support, or please not resistance or support or whatever. I'm telling you to go learn charts, watch charts, take some analyst alerts if you want to, have a little bit of risk in the market, or send me or any of the other good traders in here a chart and say, hey, I'm looking at this. Me and I know 1K, I'm not sure if he's still in here, but we get those messages all the time, and those are our favorite messages. Look at this chart. What do you think of it? I can even give you guys an example from voice chat today. I wasn't watching Mara, but we're watching Mara. We see this hard sell down. We see us pushing down to here. We know our next support is 10 cents below us. And we know that we have a nice little target sitting here about 20 cents above us, and we can potentially go back to these highs. I wasn't looking at this chart, and somebody says, hey, Mara calls, or what do you think of Mara calls? I pull up the chart and I look at it, and I got my levels here, and I say, hey, this is small risk. Let's hit some Mara calls. And we happen to catch a nice little scalp on them today. And so send us those charts. Tell us your ideas. I know it's much more difficult in premium voice chat, and I know not all of you are likely in pro. But for anybody in pro, I'm in voice chat 7 times a week. ask me questions. You guys all know that I tell all of you it's about education when we're in there. When a trade lines up, we'll take it. Otherwise, we're silent or we're talking about trading. Or I mean, today we got a little off topic talking about families, but you know, we're on target most of the time in there. And so if you're ever looking at a trade or anything, send me a message. Send, oh look, 1K is in here. Send 1K a message. Look at, here's my chart. Is it good? Is it bad? And you know, there's going to be times, I'll tell you right now, you're going to send me a chart. I'm going to say, no, you know, I wouldn't take that trade. And it's going to pay massive. And I apologize ahead of time for when that happens, but send me a message. Or, you know, send me a message and ask me the question. You know, I am, and I always have been since I joined OOT. It's why they hired me years ago. They saw me helping people, they saw me teaching people. They realized that I'm about education. I want, like, you know, I say it all the time. If I can do this, all of you can do this. So that's what I'm here for. To send me, you know, send me messages, ask me questions. You know, I've been doing it forever. Yeah, Burnt Peanut, he knows. I joined voice chat years ago before I worked here, 2020, 2021. And I was one of the only people that traded, you know, and so, and like had before this and was able to talk about it. And so when we first started doing voice chats, it was, you know, me and Lambos and, you know, Scalper, and there wasn't a lot of us, you know. Flips eventually joined, you know. I mean, Flips learned to trade in OOT. I mean, he did a lot of work on his own, don't get me wrong, but Flips learned to trade in OOT, you know, and he'll say that too. Lambo's still here. Hell yeah, he's still here. Of course, that guy ain't gone anywhere, dude. I'd burn this place down if he ever tried to leave. He's Burnt Peanut, just to let you know. But I'm here for education. I have always been here for education. Do I make jokes on trade floor? Absolutely. I mean, I like to troll. I like to laugh. I like to have fun. You know, if all we do is sit here and trade, it's going to get boring. We should probably have some laughs on trade floor on occasion. But no matter what, if you ever talk trading to me, then I'm going to be as serious as I can. You know, I might make jokes. Oh, you know, what do you think of Tesla? And I might say my normal, you know, shitty product, shitty CEO, hate the company, short it. But I'm kidding. You know, that's a joke sometimes. And I'm always going to take trading serious with you guys. So again, that's what I want us to quit losing money, start making money, stop chasing trades, stop feeling the FOMO and the greed. And, you know, don't be the person looking for the, you know, people loving you because you posted something big in Gains tab. Just do this for yourself. When you start focusing on yourself, you're really going to start succeeding in this. The other thing that I always recommend is find somebody who is better than you at this. You know, it's a really important thing in trading to understand that there isn't a best trader on the planet. You know, there isn't somebody who is, you know, just unbeatable. There's a million different ways to do this right. And find somebody who you like how they trade. Maybe you see consistency in their trading. Maybe you just like, you know, that they're in trades for a long time, or maybe they're in trades for a short time, and follow that person and learn from that person. I recommend it all the time. I've even talked about it in here, that you need to find somebody who's better than you, and you need to ask them all the questions you can, and you need to learn from them every single thing you can. And, you know, maybe as you learn more, you guys are going to start having, you know, conversations. I'm going to use 1K because he's in here. Him and I have talked a lot about trading and have for years. I like to think he maybe learned a couple of things from me. And then once he got his grasp on trading, he went and found a lot of these things that matter to him. And he trades very well now. Are some of them what I use? No, but they work for him. So find somebody, maybe learn a couple of things from them. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it, and then start to extrapolate on some of it. Start to find those things that you like. You know, one of them that I'm thinking off the top of my head is short period moving averages. 1K, you know, he called it on T, you know, I think it was like the daily 9 moving average. I don't watch that. Well, it got absolutely clobbered off that. So maybe if I did watch that, I would have seen something there, you know, instead of buying calls on the stupid thing. So find somebody who you like their trading, ask them all the questions you can, get all of the answers that you can, and go and keep learning. Maybe build your things that you like, and you will still always have access to that person. I've told this story a bunch, so I'm sure some of you have heard it. I joined OOT. OOT was big in those days. In 2020, I mean, trade floor went a million miles an hour. There was thousands of people in here. It went quick, and it was hard to keep up with everything. And you guys know me. I mean, everybody jokes about me being the old guy. It just wasn't really my thing. There wasn't like, yeah, we had to put timers on all the time. It wasn't really my thing. And then this is no disrespect to anybody in here. I'm not trying to be rude about it, but there wasn't a lot of people for me to learn from. I was happy talking in voice chat and learning from people, and helping people learn some things. You guys know I love to do that. And then finally, one day, we're in voice chat and we're scalping. And Tilio joins. And I hadn't met Tilio. I knew he was an owner. I think we'd maybe sent a message back and forth because I did say, hey, I messaged him and said, hey guys, I'm not an idiot. I've been helping some people out. I hope that's all right. I think that was the extent of our conversations at that point. And he joined voice chat. And so we were scalping a couple things, and he said, and I took a trade, and he's like, oh yeah, nice. Like I'm in those, or maybe he alerted him or I alerted. I don't remember what happened, but we're both in this trade. We catch a nice little scalp, and then I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm out right here. And then he made some like, a lot of people don't know Tilio these days, but he's like, he can kind of be a smart ass, and so he makes this like little smart ass comment about how I'm gonna regret it selling him. And I kind of laughed to myself, and said, oh, yeah, like whatever. I haven't been super impressed with too many of the traders in here. Those things were up like 350%, not 4 or 5 minutes later. And that was the day I said, okay, I'm staying in OOT. I became friends with Tilio. I started bugging Tilio. I was, of course, scalping at that point. I mean, a little bit, I wasn't great at it. And bugged Tilio, asked him so many questions, things that like, I could trade the market well, but he kind of, was like, well, you start, he knew what I knew. So he could say, oh, well, pay attention to this, look at this, whatever it might have been. And then there's even a couple other people. I don't know if he's in here, Jet, him and he taught me a lot. He's a good spy scalper. He taught me a lot about contract selection and the right time to be taking the certain contracts and blah, blah, blah. And, so there was a couple of people in here to learn from. And then one thing leads to another. And now I've been a proud employee of OOT, loved this place for 4 years or whatever it is, and always trying to stay teaching. So with that, we got about 20 minutes left. I want to open it up to all of you guys. Again, I was kind of focused on losses. How can we avoid losses? What are ways to avoid FOMO, avoid greed, avoid the gains tab, ignore the he said, she said, nonsense of trade floor, and trade these charts. So what do you guys struggle with? Is losses something you struggle with? Did I waste, 30 minutes of your life talking about how to avoid losses and things to look at on the charts and decisions to make of, always being risk averse? What do you guys struggle with? I want to open it up to all of you. What did I say that you liked or didn't like? But we see we got a few things. What do you guys think? Let's talk.
Yeah. River, I the one thing for me is just patience most of the time. The entry, like when to pull the trigger. Like I see the play, I see it, I'm gonna do it, but I don't pull it. Like I still wait, but then it runs up.
Yep.
And that happens to me sometimes.
Yep.
And yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about, of building confidence. And the unfortunate thing with the market is the only way to build that confidence is to, one, start swinging the bat. I know Raphael's heard me say that one. Start swinging the bat. And the thing that you always have to remember is you're going to lose money. I'm telling you right now. One time at least, you're swinging that bat and you're losing money. But just remember that is part of it. You don't, you have to start trying though. And that doesn't mean, like I said, every time a level's getting hit, you're buying something. It doesn't mean that. But maybe you start to say, okay, I am going to sit around, and I'm just making up something random right now. I'm going to sit around and I am only going to take trades when the entire market double bottoms. when I see Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Nvidia, SPY, QQQ, they all look like a double bottom, I'm going to buy calls. Or they all look like a double top, I'm going to buy puts. Find a trade that you like. I used those because I love those trades personally. Find a trade that you like and works for you and run with it. But be patient and let them set up. You might not even get a trade every day. You might only get 3 trades a week, 2 trades a week.
Yeah.
Well, once you really get those trades down and you start feeling a little bit more confident and you start to say, okay, I like this trade. This one's working for me. Now you find another trade you like. Maybe you like
Yep.
a first touch of an hourly 20 or a first touch of a VWAP to take the reversal off of it. And now you start looking for that trade and you start building confidence on that trade and you start to kind of watch the market and say like, okay, I can't just, blindly short VWAP when we come to it. So what do I have to see line up in the market for me to short VWAP? And learn that trade. And I do 2 different classes, trading plans and trading strategies. Plans are, I'm entering here, I'm buying this contract, blah, blah, blah. Well, the strategy is, how that plan starts. You say, okay, I'm going to let the double bottom set up market wide. Then when that happens, or hopefully before it happens, you're building your plan. I want to buy this contract around this price because I think the market will double bottom here. And when it sets up, you buy it. And so just find one of those things and really, run with it. And you'll start to find a lot more success. You don't want to be the person that's like, oh, I'm buying double bottoms. Well, no, now I trade bull flags. Well, no, now I trade inverse head and shoulders only. You don't want to always just be switching around and like, oh, this pattern's setting up, this pattern's setting up. You want to find one thing and get really, really good at it. And then your confidence will start to build and it will start to build. And then maybe you add a new thing and maybe you add a new thing, and then maybe you're like, okay, I'm done with these scalping trades. I want to start to look for some day trades. Maybe I can take a few less trades and catch a little more movement, that type of thing. Okay, I realize I got a few questions in here. And Joe, shout
Thank
out to
you.
you, Big Joe. That's big
Thank you.
big
I wanted to chime in on like what you were saying as well too, because like, dude, I totally agree with everything you're saying. That's kind of what I do. But one thing that like you got to take a swing, right? But one thing like if you're trying to pinpoint like when to get in, when to get out, one basic simple thing that I do is the fundamentals, and that's just simple support, resistance, and trend lines, bro. Because it's you're gonna always find a bounce at the
you
at the
guys
support, and then the resistance is when you're gonna get out, you know.
and
But
you
you got to
guys see
catch it
my
right then and there.
charts, I mean, I got a couple EMAs. I got three, technically speaking, 3 EMAs in VWAP. Those are my indicators. I think of them as support and resistance. I mean, support and resistance and trends. It's the bread and butter for me. I know people try to say, oh, retail traders stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, it works. It's worked for 200 years. If you do it right, it works very well.
Nope.
But I want to say, Joe, shout out to you for learning and showing up. I say it all the time. I'm happy if I can
Appreciate
teach
that.
you something. I'm happy if you learn something from me, but always pat yourself on the back. You're the one who puts in the work. You're the one who clicks buy and sell. I can teach you a little bit. If you apply it, that's the real accomplishment. And that's give yourself the pat on the back always. Avenger, how do you find a mentor? You find somebody who you like how they trade, and then you message them and you say, hey, I like how you trade. And then you start to send them questions and little hints, hey, I liked this, or hey, what do you think of this? And just build a relationship with them and start talking to them, I'll just use me as an example. Maybe you like how I trade. Maybe you hate me as a person. I can never be your mentor. And the only way to do that is to start, trying to build some of those relationships, doing some of those things. There's a lot of these folks in here that talk to me. Like Crashmas actually saying it right below you. I try to help everybody I can. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that I can teach you everything or you're going to be a great trader. I got one buddy, I did one-on-ones with him for a long time, years. 2.5, 3 years. We did one-on-ones very frequently. And he was getting it. He knew what he needed to do. then the charts show up and he'd mess it all up, you know? And so finally I said, hey, you know, take a break, think about what you like, trade on your own for a little bit, you know, because like I said, maybe you think we should long Mara, maybe I think we should short Mara. One of us is going to be right, and I could be the one that's wrong. So I told him, you know, hey, go trade on yourself or go trade by yourself for a little bit. You know, you don't need more one-on-ones. You know what I have to teach. And he's trading sick right now. I mean, he took himself a little bit of break. He got his head straight. He is sitting on a big all-time loss, but port is going up and to the right. That's all we want, you know? And so he learned everything he needed to do, and it just took him a few months to he does jujitsu. He's got a hard head, is what we always said, you know, but it's sunk in and it's working for him now. So if you want to find a mentor, you find somebody, you bug them, you ask them questions, you see if you like them, and then maybe if there's you know an opportunity for one-on-ones or mentorship or whatever it is, maybe you guys can cross that bridge. But make sure you like the person, make sure you want to learn what they have, you know, and go learn from them. One of the important things I have to recommend is when you're learning from somebody, learn from them. Like I can tell you right now, when I'm doing like one-on-ones with somebody, one of my least favorite things is them showing up with some new indicator and saying, well, what do you think of this? You should try this. Um, don't ever do that. You're there to learn from them. So don't go learn from a bunch of other people at the same time. Find somebody you like and learn with them. Good question here. You struggle with stop losses and getting out because you think the trade is reversing, and it's hard to identify if you're reversing or pulling back. So when I teach stopping out, I teach that you should always have two stop losses in mind. One of them is going to be mental. You know, it's going to be like, let's say we're going to buy this pullback right here to our 1588 level. I'm just picking one, you know, a random one. Don't take this trade tomorrow or anything, but you know, we're buying this pullback to 1588 because it's bounced before. We're going to see if it's going to bounce again. My mental stop on this trade, and I'll blow the screen up a little bit, you know, we're buying this pullback. My mental stop on this trade is a 5-minute close under this candle. You follow that, or under this level. You follow that rule no matter what. Well, you also need to have what I describe as many things, but a protective stop. It's a stop that you put on your chart and it doesn't move. So maybe these contracts, and again, completely made up numbers, cost $50. You say my stop is a stop under here, my planned stop, I'm going to be risking $5 a contract or whatever it is. Well, you have to come down here and you have to say, I am not willing to risk more than $20 per contract. Again, I'm just making up random numbers. Your hard stop goes right here. You don't care if it bounces. You don't care if this green candle comes off of it. This is the maximum amount you're willing to lose. And that's what you always put it at a point where you know the market is reversing. You know, if you're long and you break whatever your thing is that tells you to buy it, and your plan is now void and you know the market is going to reverse, you take that stop, no questions asked. So the best thing I can recommend if you struggle with stop losses is widen, you know, think of a wider stop that is the maximum amount you're willing to lose and never move it. Yeah, 1K, you're exactly right. And what he says is a lot of fear and hesitation comes from repeating big, deep red losses and YOLOs. And it is, as weird as it is, people take their YOLO and then they take their gigantic loss and then they say, I'm never doing that again. And then the very next trade they YOLO to try to make up that thing, the previous trade, and they again just hold it and it's dying, and it's dying, and they don't sell, and they don't, you know, they don't buy where they should, they don't sell where they should, and it does just build so much hesitation of what do I do, you know, like you and people, I see it all the time, people freeze, you know, and that's just the way it goes sometimes, but it is those YOLOers that they build this hesitancy because they know things have happened before, but they just freeze. They have a certain amount of detachment to watching the money disappear, and they hesitate and they freeze. They don't know what to do. Yeah, and Crash, what you're talking about right here is hitting the sell button. That is the single-handed most difficult thing for traders to do is to click the sell button when it's time to click the sell button. When you're red and you know the trade is going against you. We've heard it a million times in voice chat, you know, it's some of those guys' favorite things. I'm going to see what happens. Well, what you're going to see happen is going to be your port going down in size. And it is one of the hardest things for people to do. When you click sell for a loss, the money's gone and it's not coming back. And that is very, very difficult for people to do, unfortunately, is just clicking that sell button when it's time to be done. What about Sharkar Savior? Love that guy. Yeah, 1K, you're right. Yep, Big Joe. I'm sure you're talking about when I was saying find a plan, find a strategy, and just run with it nonstop. And learn it, hammer it, repeat it, do it over and over and over again. And hopefully it's a repeatable strategy that works. But the other important side of that is if you're stopping out all the time, it's not working. Find something new. So Arvin, yeah. And so very good question. How do you get ready in the morning? And you start over analyzing things and exactly trying to force trades, thinking about it. And so what I do every single morning, this is what I do. I go daily chart. I pull up the daily chart. I do the exact same thing on all of these names. I pull up all of their daily charts. Like I said, this is literally what I do when I sit down at my computer. I will say I don't only, but yeah, I will say I only trade daily levels. So the very first thing that I do is I look at the daily charts on these and I say, okay, where are we trading? And so for a day like today, well, this is, Amazon's pushing in, and that was a nice ripper on it, but Amazon's pushing into a double top. We kind of see that on the open. Apple sort of in no man's land. We got a nice little double top forming on Microsoft. We got a whole bunch of tops up here on Nvidia, big 134s, 135 levels above us. So we're not rushing into longs. Then we go to SPY and we see, before this day had even started, we know that 585, 586 zone is about the biggest spot on the chart. So we know if we start pushing up into all of those, we aren't long. It doesn't mean we're short, but when we start getting those pushes up into our levels that they're daily levels, they're going to work over and over and over again. That's where we start to look short on some of these names. And, obviously a lot of these put in those nice bounces early, right into the kind of resistances that we were looking for. Microsoft big bounce early, sells us below this level, can't get back above it. Nvidia, sort of the same story, double top and slow grind up. You don't want to be the one that's long when everything's at resistance. Even Google, massive ripper, ended up one of the weaker intraday tech names there was, came all the way back down to like below opening price. All of these names were pushing into resistance. So we don't rush in long, or we don't rush in long. That's one of the most important things we can do.
Hey, River.
Yep.
I will share my struggle just because I guess it could be someone else's too. But one thing I've been working on is don't trade SPY and trade things that move slower. It's like learning how to drive, like you cannot start driving a Porsche. You need to start with a slower car,
Yep. And you know me, I say it all the time. I kind of yelled that one at you even. These names are easier to trade, substantially easier to trade. You have to think about it. So say you only want to trade Apple. Well, you learn Apple. And what affects Apple? Well, Apple and news that involves Apple. That is what affects Apple. Well, maybe you want to trade Apple and Nvidia. You want a more volatile one like Nvidia. What affects Nvidia? Chip news and Nvidia. That's it. Well, if you can't trade an individual name well, then why are you trading SPY? This thing has the push and pull of 504 stocks on it. If you can't trade one good and you can't trade two good, then maybe you shouldn't be trading the one that's 504 things if you don't understand how those other individual names move and react. So I teach it all the time. Go learn Apple, go learn AMD, go learn Google, go AT&T, Coca-Cola, Bank of America. I don't care. Find a stock you like to trade. That's like AT&T. Like, why would you trade this stupid AT&T stock? Well, because I love to. That's it. There's a million things that are better to trade, maybe more fun to trade, more volatile to trade. I love trading this thing, so I trade it all the time. That doesn't mean you have to like trading it, but find an individual name you like and run with it, you know? Yeah, I even see Crash talking about it. 1K trades them all the time. And I've said this a million times in lecture. I hope he left so he doesn't hear it. If you aren't taking 1K's trades and in 1K's tab, then like you're missing out on one of the best things in OOT, without a doubt. So definitely do not skip over that tab. Yep, Rob's exactly. Understanding the risk loss is how you can stick to the plan. And if you don't have a plan before you enter the trade, then you don't know how much money you could lose. And if you don't know how much money you can lose, you shouldn't be in a trade. Oh my God. Well, yeah, if you want to lose money, you can long this stock. It's called ASTS. If you hate your money, buy calls on that. Yeah, 1K's tab is epic. And like I said, he's, you know, I've said it a million times in lectures and stuff like that. He's one of the few people I'll talk trading to. He's one of the very few people I'll take his trades in here. If you aren't in 1K's tab, you're messing up. I mean, he gives the entire plan for any trade he takes, the contracts that he takes, the price that he wants to pay on the contracts before he takes those trades. If he tells you if he takes an entry, he tells you if he takes his stop out, and he tells you if he sells for profit. And even more than that, he posts screenshots of position. To me, it's pretty important. You know, he's in there. So you know, he might have a drinking problem and go to the bar at 8 a.m., but he's a really, really good trader and he should not be ignored. Crashes, I know I got busted. I mean, I might be interested in it.
Uber, River.
what
can you
up,
give me an
River
Uber? Can
boy?
you give me an Uber, please? I need the Uber. I'm drunk.
Yeah, I know. 1K's calling in the Uber again. This guy. Oh God, we got Norvin.
Yo, Rigetti.
Oh
Oh,
my God,
shit.
God, how did I know he was going to show up and talk about quantum nonsense? We can look at him though.
All
They-
right. Appreciate the lecture. Catch you tomorrow.
Yeah, lucky. Yeah, that's right, Scotty. I told him he should just buy his own. But I do have to point out, I got one line on Rigetti. It is when Norvin told us to full port it at 1749. So, you know, we're almost back to break even after being minus 60%. And wasn't this the real Ripper? Or what is it? QUBT? One of these was huge. Oh no, it was this one. This one was massive.
QBTS.
Nah, this one. Ion Q. This was the real Ripper today. 36% day.
Bro, I still hold 50 shares of that. I remember I told you when I bought 100 shares of that back at 7, wrote it up to like $44, and I'm just been
Yep.
sitting on the other half.
QBTS is gonna rip, bro.
Yeah, full of toasty, Scotty. I like that.
yes.
Okay, well that's it for all the important stuff. Thank you everybody for being here. If you got to get out of here, I really appreciate you. I love talking trading psychology.
River,
Love-
good night, River. I love you, my man.
Yeah.
I love you.
Dude,
Yo, River.
read the mental
love
game
you.
of trading.
Yo, River, can you pull up your QQQ puts? End of day?
River, I love you.
You guys are the best. Norvin, I can basically guarantee you that your short wasn't as good as the short that we hit.
Norvin, where you been at, Norvin? I haven't seen you in the chat, man.
Lucky. Norvin, we shorted this. We shorted 586.55 on SPY today.
Norvin gave me a nice trade last week, like
Dude, every once in a while that guy'll sneak out
2
a
weeks ago.
What one? This one, dude. This one, you know, you got to give credit where credit is due. So right back here, Norvin asked me, you know, end of April about
When
this
you
one.
come back,
And I finally told him, you know, here's a good trade. We even talked this, you know, I was like, look, you actually have a trend break going. You have a nice base forming, long it here, stops under 40. This was, in my opinion, this was this was like one of the best trades that Norvin's given us. But then if we want to be technical, I'll give Norvin some credit because we all love to hate on the guy more than anything, you know? So, oh yeah, but it's post split. Norvin gave us the buy on, God, it was somewhere down here. Oh, I can probably look. Norvin gave us the buy. I gave Norvin the buy. He actually shorted it and blew his port, but at $50 on SMCI. And I have to point out, you know, SMCI split. So it's $10 less. It ran from $50 to $1,200 on the Norvin alert. So I do got to give credit where credit is due. So every once in a while, Norvin hits a banger. Other times he gives you this one and tells you to like full port it long at 70.
Yeah. Yo, River, what's the word with the apples, man? Apple dropped down.
You gotta buy it at 200. It's back under that trend though, but I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I hate this stock. It's taken,
sneaky, the sneaky one.
yeah, this one's taken some money from me lately, so I'm mad at it.
Yo,
Cam,
River,
what made me short SPY end of day? So
what
we'll talk about it just real quick, you know.
what do
So
you think about the Aero
Norvin,
defense contract with LHX? They just signed that deal for the Shield, bro. They're gonna make it. LHX.
What's the company? What is that, man?
it's probably some nonsense. So Cam, here you go. So SPY, obviously 3-push wedge. I'll frequently short those. Turned into a 4-push wedge even. Was trying to break a level, hadn't been able to break all day. So we called the bluff on it. But we didn't just blindly call the bluff. You can't just like blind short things. And so with me, I always look at these stocks as well. So what I looked at was double top on Apple, Amazon trending down, obviously weak off the back of that news, even a little micro lower high double top going on right here. First test of Microsoft up here at VWAP, got to assume that's not going to break. And then Nvidia, was it above 134? Yeah, but it sure wasn't finding strength above 134. So then you go to SPY and you call the bluff on the SPY breakout. Let me emphasize, this was whatever it was, 30 minutes to close. And I told people, extremely high risk. We are technically speaking shorting a breakout. But if we get blown out, we're going to get blown out in a big way, but got to expect a pullback. So we just so happen to get a pullback.
Alrighty.
Yo, River, that company I'm telling you, LHX, Paris.
Check
They're
it out.
gonna
Let's
make
check it
the
out.
Shield, bro. They're
Why
gonna
do I
make the
have-
Shield.
Why do I have
Say
levels?
what love, bro.
Why do I already have levels on it? I was apparently looking at this back here. I would have told you I've never even heard of this thing, but I apparently looked at his chart at some point. Looks like
LH.
I was probably telling Norrin to buy this thing at 224 before it ran to 265. Okay, well, if
What
that's gonna do
what
it, thank you
company?
so much, everybody.
River, I love you.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys are all the best. Thank you so much.
Later, River boy.
Man, you're the best.
Thanks,
Reddit-
River, man.
Reddit to the
Appreciate you.
moon, boys.
Right on. Thank you all. We will catch you all tomorrow. Little Friday fun day. Let's have a
Yes,
Thank you, River.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Like that cash.
Yo, River, don't
Cash
forget the
money.
donuts and the coffee.
Oh yeah, dude. I'll be
Cash
there
money, baby.
in the break room, Norvin.